All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Any way that you want to slice it, the San Antonio Spurs have been one of the most successful teams in the NBA since they joined the league in 1976, of course, due to the merger with the ABA. From 1977 to 2019, the Spurs only missed the playoffs four times, which of course was highlighted during that run. The franchise collecting five NBA championships and making the postseason in 22 consecutive years. But over the last 4 years, the Spurs have seen a dip in their on court productivity, with the bottom falling out this season as San Antonio lost 60 games for the first time since 1997. That year, 1997, would see San Antonio win the NBA draft lottery, which led them to taking Tim Duncan first overall. And with that, the fortunes of this franchise would change forever. Now, fast forwarding here to 2023, the Spurs once again had luck on their side last night at the NBA draft lottery, as they were once again awarded the first overall pick, and they now have the opportunity to bring in a franchise altering player into their fold. Victor Wembanyama has been hailed by some as a can't miss prospect and also the best pro prospect since LeBron James. And all signs point to Wembanyama taking up residence in San Antonio. This marks the third time in Spurs franchise history that they have the number one overall pick. And of course, in 1987, they selected the Admiral, David Robinson, and of course, Duncan in 1997. Together, Duncan and Robinson would help the Spurs win the NBA championship in 1999 and 2003, while following Robinson's retirement after San Antonio's second title. Duncan would still be front and center for three more championships there. Now, in recent years, the winning ways have been non existent in San Antonio, as once upon a time, the Spurs were looking to transition from Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili to Kawhi Leonard and LaMarcus Aldridge. But of course, injuries played a big part in why that never came together. The results simply just weren't there. And of course, through a lot of trades, retirements, you name it, the Spurs have gone from bad to worse in recent years. Now, this right here is an opportunity for the Spurs to get back on track, as Wembanyama is a new centerpiece for this organization to build around. And you think about the Spurs brain trust that for the most part has been the same, over the last 30 years or so. You're talking about R.C. Buford and, of course, head coach slash team president Greg Popovich. And, Pop has hung in there. There were some thoughts or talk from some people that Pop was going to retire in recent years, but Pop is still there. Pop is still going strong, and now this is an opportunity for the Spurs to get back on track. Now, San Antonio in recent years has not done the same good job drafting and evaluating and scouting their talent. They've brought in some good players into their fold, but it just has not worked out. And now let's see if this is going to be the opportunity that the Spurs need to get back on track. Now, of course, there are going to be some people that said maybe there was some hanky panky at the NBA draft lottery in regards to the Spurs getting the first overall pick. Let's not forget, San Antonio was tied with Houston for the second worst record in the league. And of course, the worst record in the league this past season went to Detroit. Honestly, people have been talking about that, with questionable things at the NBA draft for years. People have been talking about questionable things with the NBA draft prior to the NBA draft lottery as well. At the end of the day, it is what it is. It's not like we're talking about a scenario where the Spurs were one of the better teams in the draft lottery and then they surprisingly moved up and got the first overall pick. Absolutely not. San Antonio was a bad team. And now this is an opportunity for them to turn things around. So you look at it, and basically, you're starting from the bottom because the Spurs were one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA last year. They gave up more than 123 points per game. Opponents were shooting nearly 51% per contest against them. And then on top of that, San Antonio was one of the worst offensive teams in the league. So when you have a scenario when you're talking about one of the worst offensive teams and one of the worst defensive teams as well, it's not a recipe for success. And to most people, it should not be a shock that the Spurs lost 60 games last year. Honestly, you should be surprised that they found a way to win 22. That's how bad it was at times for this team. But nonetheless, the presence of Victor Wembanyama is going to give them an opportunity to turn things around. Again, this kid is the real deal. I'm not going to go out there and say, well, he's going to immediately make them a playoff team. Absolutely not. But one thing's for sure, I don't think we're going to be talking about San Antonio flirting with losing 60 games next season. Once again, they will show some signs of improvement. But of course, one man is not going to change the fortunes of a franchise by himself. But this is definitely a step in the right direction for the San Antonio Spurs, a step in the right direction for basketball in that region as well. Because again, this is the first time in more than 40 years that the NBA playoffs are going down, and there isn't a single team from the great state of Texas participating. Of course, the Mavericks fell short, and the Spurs and Rockets were two of the bottom feeders in the league. So this is definitely a step back to respectability for the Spurs. I would highly be surprised, just like everybody else, if the Spurs did not select Victor Wembanyama. He is going to be the first overall pick. He is the first brick for the San Antonio Spurs as they look to get things turned back around. And let's see how things work out for him in San Antonio. Excuse me. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I am signing off, and I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.